Welcome back into another episode of the Believe in Georgia Tech podcast. This is your host, Jackson Caldell, going with a solo pod for the Instant Reaction Day. RJ's not able to make it, but oh my goodness, what a win. What an incredible win for Georgia Tech. What an incredible way that they did it. Um, I, Look, there's a lot to get into. This is just a monumental win for Brent Key and Georgia Tech. It sets them up as a real contender in the ACC. It's their first win over Clemson since 2014. It just the way it happened, the way everything played out, it was just an incredible win. Um, and we're going to dig into it all. Like I say on all these instant reactions, if the connection and the audio is a little shaky, apologies. I'm in my car in the middle of a parking lot. Some things out of my control there. If you're watching this, would love it if you guys would subscribe to the channel. It's only got it should only get better from here. And there's going to be just loads to talk about when it comes to Georgia Tech. This is a great time to jump on in. We try to put out the best content, the best show that we can for Georgia Tech, and talking about Georgia Tech. So appreciate all the support we've given. We're near 1,000 subscribers now. That's incredible to me. It's just it blows my mind. So would love it if you guys would subscribe, like the video, follow us wherever you get your podcasts. I guess let's dive in. Like this was just. I guess let's start at the beginning, like we usually do. Like I don't want to jump to the Aiden Burr field goal just right yet. So Georgia Tech comes out and has a really good start to the game. Like they moved the ball down, 12 plays, 67-yard drive. It ended. They got down right to the goal line and had one of two horrible fourth down calls. Look, as good as this win was, there were some bad things in it. Particularly, I hated the fourth down play calls. I think many of you did too. I'm not going to speak for any of you, but the reaction seemed to be along those lines. I didn't understand. Like your identity is running the football. That's basically the mentality. Maybe Key didn't really go into it in the post game, but I be anxious to ask him that next week and just see kind of like what the look dictated and all that kind of stuff. So really hated that call. The defense, on the other hand, causes a fumble on Clemson's first drive. Cade Klubnik, Omar Daniels knocked it loose. It was a great play, set Georgia Tech up in great field position. Aiden Burr hits the field goal. It was 3-0. And I tweeted this at the time that it was awesome that Georgia Tech was up 3-0. To be leading in the game against Clemson, like you started fairly well. It could have been 14-0. Like Georgia Tech had chances to really put Clemson in a bind early, and they just didn't take complete advantage of it. And to be honest, and we'll get into a couple other plays later, but I wondered if it would come back to haunt them. Look, not to drudge up bad memories, but there were some similarities to parts of the beginning of the Georgia game last year. In that one, Burr missed a field goal. Georgia Tech is just driving it down their throat and just was unable to finish drives. You had some shades of that here. Not an exact replica of it, but you had some shades of that in there. So it is 3-0. That's really good. Clemson drives it down, missed a 53-yard field goal. We had talked about how Georgia Tech needed to win on the downs where it mattered, the third and fourth downs, those kind of things. Having that was huge. Second quarter starts and Georgia Tech's on their third drive. You have a big 40-yard catch by Eric Rivers. Jamal Haynes punches it in. 5 plays, 65 yards. Like that was a really quick drive. And then Clemson goes 3 and out. And just all the momentum is on Georgia Tech's side at that point. They go back on their fourth drive after the 3 and out, 10-play, 46-yard drive. Aiden Burr hits a 42-yarder, and it's 13-0. This, I thought, Clemson's fourth drive, I thought, could end up being the most consequential of the game. So they have a holding penalty that knocks them back to 1st and 20. Cade Klubnik slips and falls. It's 2nd and 22. I think there was an incomplete pass. I'm not exactly sure. I didn't write every single play down. But so it gets to a 3rd and 22, and given the play call, it certainly looked like Clemson was just, all right, run it, punt it, and, we'll figure it out on defense. Well, Adam Randall just busts through the middle for 30 yards, and that led to Clemson's first touchdown drive of the game. They cut it to 13-7. And I was just thinking about that play for the rest of the game, especially when Clemson took the lead later in the second half. I'm like, man, is that going to be the drive you look back on where it's like, man, if you just get a stop on 3rd and 22, even if he gains like 8 to 10 yards and it ends up being like 4th and 12, like that was just a really back-breaking play. The run defense was okay today. I'll be interested to see how they do going forward because Clemson was atrocious in the first 2 games running the football. Now, one of those was against an elite defense in LSU, but Clemson was able to get a little bit on them today as far as the ground game. But so Clemson cuts it to 13-7. Georgia Tech didn't really do much on their 5th drive. It ended up being halftime. They kind of tried something to start, but didn't go anywhere. They were outgaining Clemson 189-158 at the half. Haynes King was 12 of 16, 129 yards. Cade Klubnik, 9 of 14, 72 yards. This will be something I talk about at the end, but like Georgia Tech had 0 sacks and no tackles for loss, and that's what they ended the game with. And, that's going to be something to monitor going forward. So go into the 3rd quarter. Clemson comes out on their 5th drive. They have 3 really big plays and get down to Georgia Tech's red zone. It looks like they're about to score and take the lead. And then Omar Daniels made an incredible play to intercept Cade Klubnik, returned it. I want to say it was past midfield, or it was at least near midfield. And then Georgia Tech has like one of their worst drives of the game. They go 3 and out. They just weren't like there was just a stretch in this game where they just were not able to get anything going on the offensive end, and that was kind of a point in that game. And then Clemson comes back on their 6th drive. You had the 73-yard touchdown from Bryant Wesco, by far their biggest play of the day. They take the lead 14-13. Georgia Tech goes 3 and out again, but the defense, like they've been put in some situations in the Colorado game where it's like, hey, guys, we really need to stop right here. And while I don't think this is an elite unit, I think it's a very resilient one. They force a 3 and out, give Georgia Tech the ball back. Tech's starting to move it pretty good on their 8th drive. They get to about midfield, and then they had what was probably a worse 4th down decision. Not a decision, just a play call. I was fine with the decision to go for it on 4th and 1. So they got too cute with it, tried to run the tight end under the center and try to sneak it. It looked like he fumbled the ball. I'll have to go back and watch it again. I really, really, really did not like the 4th down play calling in this game. Like, I'm going to try to be like, this is a generally positive podcast because they won and it's an incredible victory. The 4th down play calling was terrible. And that's something, if you're put in some situations in, games later this year, like you're going to have to, it's just got to be better. Like, you just got way too cute right with some of it. Like you have Haynes King, you have Jamal Haynes, you have Malachi Hosley. Use one of them to get a 4th and 1. Don't try doing that. I really didn't like any of that. But the defense, again, resiliency. They come out, force a 3 and out from Clemson, go into the 4th quarter, and then like that was when Haynes King took over. 13 played, 90-yard drive. I think it took a little bit over 6 minutes. Touchdown. They run, I guess, the quote-unquote Philly special. Jamal Haynes passed it to Dean Patterson in the end zone. It was very reminiscent of that Super Bowl play that the Eagles ran what feels like a billion years ago now. Georgia Tech goes up 21-14. Clemson drives down 13 plays, 75-yard drive. You had the kind of ticky-tack pass interference in the end zone. To me, that was a 50-50 call. I think it could have gone either way. I have to go back and see it again. But that set Clemson up. They converted, tied the game. And there was, I believe, 3:49 to go. And it was like the stage was set. It felt like to me the entire Brent Key era was like building towards that drive against Clemson. Like you have one drive, you can soak up the rest of the time on the clock, and you can beat a longtime rival who has been beating the crap out of you for a decade. Like the games outside of the one in 2021 have not been close. And, I remember watching the game a couple years ago when in Brent Key's first season, and they went to Death Valley, and like they were down 35-7, and it just looked like they couldn't physically compete with Clemson, and it looked like they were still a ways off from being able to do so. It just felt like all those moments had been building to this, and it was a good drive. I I'm not a huge fan of playing for the field goal, no matter how. And that's not even anything against Aiden Burr. It's just generally college kickers. It's you're risking a lot. And but you had a couple of key third down conversions, short yardage. They just kept going back to the well with the Haynes King quarterback run just over and over again, and they were doing just enough. Like they didn't really have any of like the big plays, like at the end against Colorado where he bust that one loose. But they were getting meaningful yards. Like they weren't getting knocked back at the end of the game. And it sets up. They call their last timeout. They run another play, get it more towards the middle of the field, and then they executed it pretty perfectly. The getting the field goal team out there in enough time, Aiden Burr lining up and just like nailing it. And like Aiden Burr deserves so much credit for how he is playing this year and how he's kicking. Like he had some struggles last year with some misses and all that and some different things. He has been incredible to start the year. Hasn't missed a kick yet. Was 3 of 3 today. Um, like you could probably should say Haynes King was the MVP of the game. Like that's nothing new. But man, you don't win that game without Aiden Burr. Like Aiden Burr missed some of those kicks last year. I know like he had the Florida State kick, but he had some missed ones. He deserves so much credit, and like he deserves that moment. Like he's busted his tail over the past few years. He absolutely deserves that moment. And then like it was just pandemonium in the stadium. I've in my short time covering the team, I've covered just pretty much the entire Brent Key era. I have seen some cool wins. I was in Miami for the kneel down game. I was there for the upset against North Carolina 2023. I was there for the upset against Miami last year. And it never gets old seeing the field being rushed by Georgia Tech fans who were absolutely incredible today. Like the whiteout had a huge effect. It was an incredible day all around at Bobby Dodd. It was, I think, the highlight of the Brent Key era. And the thing is, you can take from it is that it wasn't perfect, and you still won. Like you still found a way to win, despite really not being able to run the football. Like they only had 147 yards, averaging 3.5 yards a carry. I mean, Jamal Haynes had a tough day. Malachi Jose only carried the ball 3 times, but he only got 13 yards. Um, Giving up 174 on the ground to Clemson. They averaged 5 yards a carry. Adam Randall had 80 yards on 15 carries. We talked about it a little bit in the preview show that we thought Cade Klubnik was going to get some run. He didn't really run the ball much in these first few games. I mean, he ran the ball 17 times a day. Like him and Haynes King combined for 42 carries in this game. Like that was incredible. Just some of the key things, like I thought early in the game, like Clemson's third down conversions were going to be a big factor. They ended up going 7 for 12, but they were just nailing them early on. Like they just were doing a really good job. But some of the mistakes that Georgia Tech was making in those first 2 weeks, like you didn't have any turnovers today. Like it was like as frustrating as it was how the first drive ended with the fourth down attempt. Um, the fact that they didn't turn the ball over and they looked a little bit crisper, like that was a good sign. Like, we said it kind of become cliche. Like, okay, if you turn it over against Clemson early and give them great field position, as much as Clemson has struggled this year to move the football, like it might be like night. Like it just you can't do that against a team as talented as Clemson. They didn't have any turnovers today. They came into the game 124th in the country in penalties. They only on the fourth down conversions. I thought again that might come back to bite them. Only averaged 5.1 yards per play. 0 tackles for loss, 0 sacks. They won the time of possession only by 5 minutes. Like if you'd have showed me the stat sheet, I might have thought Clemson pulled it out at the end. Especially they were a little bit more explosive, in the run game and the Wesco passing touchdown. But at the end of the day, Georgia Tech is 3-0. This is the most talented ACC team they're going to play this year, and I think we all knew that coming into the season. That now that doesn't mean Georgia Tech's going to win every ACC game from here on out, but like you just took down Clemson. They're 1-2, and you own the tiebreaker over them. Like obviously, I know the fans don't want to see Georgia Tech, lose a game they shouldn't, but you are in a way afforded that opportunity now if you were to drop a game against somebody. But we'll get into more of the big picture stuff now, because now the expectations are, they're going to be raised, and going to be raised rather significantly in a way that this program hasn't seen in quite a while. Me and RJ mentioned on the preview show, like, if you win this game, some of it is just due to the schedule, but like, you can make the argument that they could be ACC favorites, at least in terms of betting odds. Now, I think as long as Miami takes care of business against South Florida today, which I think they were up 14-0 last I saw, but that could change by the time this is released. Miami is going to be the favorite, but like, SMU has looked shaky to start the year. Louisville struggled with James Madison. I think just given the schedule, I think Georgia Tech will jump Florida State in terms of odds, because Florida State plays Miami in a few weeks. They play Clemson. Like, there is a clear runway and a path to the ACC championship game. And given that, there is a runway and a path to the college football playoff, which is incredible to say in Brent Key's third season, but like, the path exists now. And how they handle things, like the maturity of the team and the toughness of the team, like that, it's about to get tested even further. And like, you have to believe that they'll stick to it and be fine. But one of the criticisms of Key coming into the season was, okay, consistency week to week. Like, you do great things one week, but then there are some other weeks where you don't play as well, and maybe you lose a game you shouldn't. That's going to be tested now. Now, the good thing is the next 3 weeks are, I never want to say anything's easy, but like, they will be probably 3 touchdown favorites over Temple next week. Now, it's a sleepy spot. You're coming off a big win against Clemson. Temple got killed by Oklahoma today, but like, you have to go out and show you're mature enough to handle it and take care of business. They go on the road to Wake in 2 weeks. I think Wake's probably one of the 2 or 3 worst teams in the ACC. But again, you have to go out and show that you can get the win. And then you have a bye week. And then, the rest of the schedule sets up. But, there's no Florida State. There's no Miami. There's no SMU. There's no Louisville. And I think Georgia Tech could beat all those teams. But the fact that you don't have to go through them, everything's in front of them. I'm not going to sit here and predict anything, but everything is right in front of them. And look, this was the start you wanted if you were a fan and if you were Brent Key. Like, being 3-0 by the end of week 3, knowing you had Clemson on the schedule. And look, I never thought Clemson was as good as their number 4 ranking suggests. That's still a very, very, very talented team, and nobody should take anything away from Georgia Tech from winning this game. So, all in all, look, this was a gritty win. This was, Haynes King having 100 yards rushing, I thought he had a solid day passing. Now, he did miss some targets, but Isaiah Canyon, 5 catches, 56 yards. You had your first, Eric Rivers caught some big passes. I think you're going to continue to see that more and more. But this was just a gritty win. Seeing Haynes King doing what he's doing, having Keelan Rutledge had a bloody nose on the sideline, like that, it was just a Georgia Tech win, and a Georgia Tech win in the way that Brent Key built this thing. And look, the pathway's there now. Well, there's going to be a lot of talk about that. They have to go out and earn it, but there is a clear path for Georgia Tech to reach the ACC championship game after today's win. And we'll get into more of that as we go along. Look, I'm not going to sit here and it's week 3. They have to go out and earn it, but the pathway's there. So that's going to wrap up the instant reaction. Appreciate you guys tuning in. This was just my rapid thoughts as quickly as I could get them out. If I missed anything, apologies. I'll get back to it next week on the pod. RJ should be there, but appreciate you guys tuning in. I did meet some fans today when I was down on the field pregame. That was awesome. I always enjoy meeting you guys like that. That's what I do this for, is to put out good content for you guys. And when I'm able to hear from you guys in person, that just makes it that much sweeter. So huge thanks from me. Going to be back next week, obviously previewing the Temple game, kind of talking. We may even do some extra episodes. Like this is a monumental enough moment to where we may have to do some extra episodes, and I'm down for it. But appreciate you guys tuning in. Subscribe if you haven't already. Tell your friends about us. Like the video. Follow us wherever you get your podcast. And I will see you guys next time. Thank you for tuning in.